Okay, boy, just what you wanted to do on a Tuesday night, come out and listen to sewers. How many of you were here for the May meeting last year? Great. There's going to be a little repetitive things, but hopefully you'll learn something new tonight that you didn't hear last time. And I don't want to say sit back and get comfortable, but you are in the presence of a bunch of water, sewer, wonky people. And we want to make sure that you leave tonight with your questions answered and that you understand what the issue is. Why even is septic systems, why is this a problem? Why are we talking about it? So if we can accomplish that, you go home, you think, you know what, that was a worthwhile way to spend my Tuesday night, that would be success. The other thing would be if you will just look at some point at the handout that we've given you, unless we haven't given it to you yet. I'm looking at you, Justin. Have we?
Card?
Yes.
Except for I can pass it out.
Okay, well, if you don't have a card that is asking you for some information, we'll be passing those out before the end of the night. And if I can just ask you, whether you want to continue on this journey or not, let us know so we don't keep bugging you about this if you don't want to have any more information about it. So with that, this is not going to be death by PowerPoint, but it's going to be pretty darn close. So you've got a copy of this presentation. I am not going to read every word on these slides, but I do need to make sure I cover off some things, so bear with me as I do that. This district was formed in 1961 to bring imported water into this area. So we have a function where we serve water to 5 public agencies, cities of Orange and Tustin, the Irvine Ranch Water District, where it serves Orange Park Acres, and Golden State Water Company, where it serves Cowan Heights and Lemon Heights. And then we have a small retail area that we acquired in 1985. In that little retail area, we actually have access to the groundwater basin that lies beneath our feet here. The brilliant thing when we de-annexed from LA and we became a county was we got control of a 60 million acre foot, that's a lot of water, basin that underlies us. Now, all that 60 million acre feet isn't usable water today, but it does provide us with a giant reservoir that we didn't have to build. And as it rains, that water percolates down in, it comes down the Santa Ana River. And so right now, for your water, you're getting about 75% of your water from that groundwater basin today. And 25% is supplied by that function where we bring imported water in. And that 25% is really your reliability that you're going to have water. Because as I said, we can't get all our water from that groundwater basin. And when we import that 25%, that's what makes it so that you don't really think about turning on your taps or flushing your toilet. In 2016, we acquired the sewer system, the local sewer system, from the Orange County Sanitation District. I'm going to dive a little deep here for a moment. The reason we say local sewers, local water, is because there are big giant pipelines out there that bring water to us and take it away from large areas. When you get down to the homeowner level or the business level, those are called local water systems, local sewer systems. The diameter of the pipe can still be large, 30 inches on a sewer system, 28 inches on a water system. But to the people in those industries, those are relatively small diameter pipelines. And then we have a 5-member elected board. So there are about over 600 septic systems in the North Tustin, East Orange area. Eventually those systems are going to fail. They won't all fail at the same time, but at some point they will fail. Now they'll fail in one of 2 ways. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but they will fail. Some property owners are experiencing this now, and so they came to us in September of 2016 and said, we really want to connect to the sewer system. As I'm going to explain to you, it's easier said than done. We held our first meeting last year in May, and as an outgrowth of that meeting, the board agreed to hire an engineering firm to do a study. Now you think, well, of course they would. We need to look at this and see how we can connect everybody up. The problem is right now you're not our customer for sewer. You may be our imported water customer, you may be our retail water customer, but because you're not connected to our sewer system, you're not our sewer customer yet. That means that you aren't paying any fees to us, and the fees are what fund our ability to do studies, to have staff do things. Now, we get a very small amount of property taxes, probably about $30,000, and the board decided to use those $30,000, plus they took some other monies, over $100,000, and said, you know what, there's a benefit to everybody in the area to solve this septic system problem. So we're going to take some of that money and we're going to study how can we connect everybody up in this area. Because right now we don't even know who all is connected. This map here is over here. The red areas on the map are who we know definitively are not connected to the sewer system, have septic system. The green areas are who we suspect are not connected because there's no sewer there, so logically, you know, you're not connected. Now there's some overlap areas where our system comes in near the green areas, and some of you may have connected years ago, and we just don't have a record of it. If that's the case, we need to know that. Some of you think, well, if I'm paying sewer fees, then I'm connected. Well, there was a time when Orange County Sanitation District was running the system where they were billing people who were not connected. We think we've taken care of all that, and during the last year we had one new person come in and say they weren't connected and had paid fees, and we refunded their fees to them. But if that is the case with you, let us know. We don't want to take your money, you're not getting service. So the ideal thing would be every one of those red dots, every one of those green areas would get connected up into the sewer system. So what are we not doing tonight? We are not requiring anybody to connect to the sewer system. I'll say it again, we are not requiring, there is no law that requires you right now to connect to the sewer system. And we are not requiring you to pay for someone else to connect to the sewer system. So why do we have so many septic systems? I'm going to go through this part really fast, but it has to do with the agricultural nature of this area historically. Up into the 1700s, this was sycamore trees all through here. And then in the 1700s, with the advent of Europeans, ranching occurred, and those sycamore trees were taken out to a large extent. And then by the 1900s, farming. There were walnut, apricot, and orange groves, as I'm sure some of you might remember. I do, actually, coming up here. I grew up in San Diego County. By the 1940s, as residences started to be built in this area, they were built on septic systems. There was no sanitary sewer system in the area. But and then in 1956, the first sewers were extended into this area. By the 60s, everybody was on sewer that was developing. We had the advent of tract homes in the 60s, a development that came down from Los Angeles County. And then in 2004, Orange County Sanitation District did the first septic study. And that's the study that we're working off of. The 200 properties that we know about, and the other ones we suspect the information comes out of this study. Now, they did the study, but then nothing ever really happened with the information. I think there was an effort to annex the area into Orange County Sanitation District. I'm not going to dive deep into annexation except to say that it happened, and the district paid for it, and they want money for it. So you'll see that later on. So let me stop here because some of you are going to have a hard time seeing some of this. That screen was what we were supposed to be using tonight. Apparently they had a problem within the last 24 hours, and that's what we have. I know this is a very small screen. This is a, kind of last minute adaptation, so appreciate your patience with this. But what you're looking at, what you were looking at, is a picture of a home that shows a septic system on it. Well, that is not going to work. Okay, so the cutaway there is showing you a septic tank itself. A septic tank is nothing more than a big concrete tank that generally has 2 chambers in it. And when the wastewater comes into the first chamber, anything that's heavier than the water settles out, and anything that's lighter than the water floats to the top. The relatively cleaner water then flows over into the second chamber, again settles out, floats to the top, and then to your eye, it looks pretty clean water, flows out into what's called a leach field. And that leach field, then the water filters through the soil and eventually goes down into that groundwater basin we were talking about. Now, soil treatment is a great thing, and it's relied upon worldwide for wastewater treatment to some extent. But imagine that soil is so saturated it can't treat the water anymore. That's what happens over years and years and years of using that. And when we talk about failure, remember I said there were 2 types? The first type is where that box, that concrete box, fills up and it can't take any more water, it's just full of solids. And you call a pumping company and you have them pump out all those solid material that's in there. And hopefully that box is in good condition when they do that. It's not cracked, it's not damaged in any way, and it can work the way it was designed. They have about a 20-year lifespan. The other way your septic system can fail is those leach fields get oversaturated and that water has no place to go. And it's either going to go up to the surface and you're going to get ponding and a smell, or it's going to go into your neighbor's yard, or it's going to go into the groundwater and it's not treated now, and it's going to foul our groundwater. And the way we know that is we see things like nitrates. Nitrate is a byproduct from ammonia, and ammonia is what's in your urine. And those are things that tell us that there's a problem. We don't ever want to see that. It costs 10 times what it takes to clean up groundwater than what it would take to put sewers in and things like that. So really, really bad thing when they fail. So what does it look with the sewer connection? Well, it looks pretty similar, but you just take out the leach field and the septic tank. What you see here is what's called a side sewer or a lateral. We usually call them laterals, coming out from the house and connecting up near a manhole into the street. That sewer line is anywhere, it can be anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 feet deep in the sewer for a gravity sewer system. Now, if that sewer pipeline, that bigger one there, is up above where your line is coming from your house, that means you've got to pump up into the sewer system, and you don't have a gravity system. And some people in Cowan Heights, Lemon Heights area have pumps in their home that they pump their wastewater up into the sewer system, and then the gravity sewer system takes it away. So it's a little nuanced there, but you're going to see me refer later on to systems that don't have pumping. Just know if you've got pumping, when you see costs, you've got to add some more money to the costs. Okay, does building sewers mean that you're going to get a lot of densification and you're going to get people starting to build multiple homes on a lot? Not necessarily. We're not a land planning agency. If you have a general plan or a specific plan that requires a certain density per foot, that's the county's decision, or if you're in the city of Tustin, that's city of Tustin's decision. Merely by putting a sewer there doesn't mean that you can densify. So why would you not want to convert? Say money was no object, why wouldn't you want to convert? Well, your septic system's working. You may have just replaced it and you don't want to fork out a lot of money for a system when yours is working. It's an expensive process, as you're going to see. It's an intimidating project. You're going to have people digging in your yard, laying sewer pipes, and then just the cost again. It's how do you come up with, as you're going to see, some people $60,000, $70,000 to do this. So we looked at that since last year. We've looked at it long and hard since the day that we were approached about this. If we can't build the sewers because we don't have any money, if you've got a need but you don't have the money, then is there some way we can use our ability to issue tax-exempt financing for your benefit? And what we discovered is, yes, there is. There's a way for us to be the front agency for financing this conversion, but without putting our district ratepayers' funds at risk, because the repayment of the cost would be secured by your property. The repayment of the cost, a portion of the cost, can be done through the payment of your property taxes. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a moment. So the pros of forming this improvement district is you would get financing at a rate much below what you could get. Right now it's in the 3.5% to 4% range. Now I know you think, well, I can get a mortgage for that. This isn't a mortgage, and the security for the bondholders has to be pretty high. So to be able to get this financing, 3.5%, 4% for 30 years is kind of equivalent to a mortgage. That would be a benefit. And then you can pay through your property tax payments. The cons of this, if there are any, is that only public improvements can be financed this way. In a moment, I'm going to show you the costs, and one of the costs is that lateral from your property to the main sewer. That's your cost. We can't include that in this because you won't be turning over that line to us. There's a line in the street that will be built that will eventually be owned by us, and we would be responsible for forever. But the lateral from your house is your responsibility, and that septic tank, it has to be abandoned in a correct way so that no little children fall into it later on, and there's a cost associated with that. Both of those two costs, the lateral and that septic tank abandonment, are costs that cannot be rolled into this financing. So there's 4 major costs to conversion. The first thing is there a sewer line near you? If there's a sewer line out in front of your house, the costs are relatively low. And I say relatively. When I say $20,000, I know you're going to think that's not low, but it is comparatively. If there's not, we have to build that big sewer line down your street to bring it to your house, and that is $500 to $600 a foot. A foot. 500, so you can see dollars just following after me there. It's the most expensive part of this process. That side sewer, that runs about $50 to $75 a foot through your yard. Now, if your septic tank's in the front yard and you can just run out to your street, you know, that may be 25 feet, 50 feet. But if I'm using 100 feet when I'm going to show you some of these cost estimates. Then there's all the fees that we charge in Orange County Sanitation District. This is a hard part of this talk because you look at these fees and you go, what is all that for? That all is for to buy capacity into the sewer system. While we have to build a pipeline to by your house, there's miles and miles and miles of other pipelines that other people have bought in, that have paid for. You have to buy into that system that brings that wastewater all the way down to Fountain Valley, to Orange County Sanitation District's treatment plant. And then you have to buy into that treatment plant and the ocean outfall or wherever that water ends up going to be treated. So, as you're going to see, and then there's costs to abandon that septic tank, about $1,000 to pump it out and get a permit, and then $1,000 to fill it with sand. So here's an existing, a customer that has a pipeline right out in front of their street. That would be somebody like this property here, this property here, this property here. What would it cost them to hook up? $7,500 to build that lateral, $9,000 in fees, and $2,500 to abandon that septic tank. These are estimates. I'm going to say that like 10 times because someday you're going to go, Lisa, you told me it was $19,000, and now you're telling me it's $25,000. This is just an estimate, folks. It could be less than this, it could be more. I'm just taking a kind of representative sample here. So there it is, $19,000. You couldn't finance through us. You'd have to come up with your own financing if you were one of the people that has a home like this. Now let's get to all the folks that have no sewer nearby. Per home, if you had to construct 1,000 feet of new municipal sewer, and you had 10 homes that would participate in this with us, that'd be $60,000 per home. Then you've got the other fees, the lateral, the septic tank abandonment, all that, for a total of about $80,000. Of that, the other part there, the lateral and the septic tank abandonment, again, have to finance that separately. The portion that you could finance through us would be the $60,000. And if we were able to we would put that on the tax bill, and it would be an additional $3,400 a year. Now that would not be due and payable if you sold your home. It stays with the property. So if you have equity in your home and you're worried that you'd have to pay that upon sale, you would not have to do that. The new owner would have to pay the balance of it, and it has to be that way. You can't pay it off early. We want the people getting the benefit from the improvement to keep paying the improvement. So what happens if we do nothing, or you don't connect, or we can't get a group together? Well, we need 95% participation, whether it's a large group or a small group. And the reason is, if your neighbors pay to build this system and you don't connect, and then down the road you want to connect, well, first of all, we can't finance it if we don't have a high percentage of participation. But later on, if you say, well, I'm not going to connect, I'll connect someday later, well, you're probably going to pay a penalty if you do that. You're going to pay the cost, and then you're going to pay a penalty. And you may not be too happy about that. You can wait until it's mandated. There's discussions in Sacramento about mandating that septic systems within a certain period of time connect to sewer systems. There's been that discussion for many years. I haven't seen movement on there, but you never know. I can't say it won't happen. If that happened, you're at some interest rate risk. If that happened 4 or 5 years from now and interest rates are higher, even if the cost of construction were the same, your financing costs will be higher. If they require this, right now in California, because of Oroville Dam and a lot of other construction that's going on in other parts of the United States, we have a lack of contractors. Our district just bid a project, and it came in almost 2 times what the engineer's estimate was because the contractors are all busy. They've got tons of work. If the state required this all at one time, can you imagine how many, there's not that many contractors that do this work. So, you know, you've got that issue of either too many contractors, high prices, or a bunch of unqualified contractors coming in to do it, and then bad workmanship. And then just working against the deadlines. Regulations always carry deadlines, and you know, you think you got a lot of time at the beginning, and then all of a sudden they creep up on you. And then you risk septic tank failure or some kind of expensive replacement. So, last thing, what's next? You're going to hear a little bit about the study, the septic system study that the board commissioned, what its scope is, and what's it designed to do, which is to get those numbers that I gave you, to narrow those numbers down a little bit more. But we really want to find out, is there interest? We sent out over 600 invitations to this meeting tonight. You know, we did not get a lot of interest. If there isn't a lot of interest, we'll probably keep moving along, finishing our study, but you know, it may end there. We do have a group of homeowners on Vista del Lago who have banded together and come to us with a proposal, and we're looking seriously at working with them and maybe just doing a short segment of sewer. So if you have a similar group of neighbors and you think you want to do something like that, please let us know. We'd love to work with you on that too. The reason we'd like to see if we could build out the whole system at once is obviously it's less expensive to do that than to do little segments of it, but we'll do whatever people want us to do. And if there is enough interest, we'll hold another meeting and we'll give the results of this report, and let us know if you want us to do that. Otherwise, give us your contact information and we'll send you the results of the report. But if we had enough interest, we'll hold another meeting and give you a presentation on it. And then, like I said, if there's not enough interest, we'll just keep working and moving forward. So please fill out that contact slip. I'm going to introduce Diane Pei right now from AKM Engineering. She and Zeki, I'm sorry, Karian, are here, and they are doing the work on the study. Let's see, Diane, how about if I have you come up and I'll get your presentation up?
Just this one right there?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Pei. Like Lisa said, I'm with AKM Consulting Engineers. So we've been retained by the district to help them with the septic conversion study. We're actually also doing the sewer master plan for them right now. We're in the thick of it. So we're building a hydraulic model of the sewer system as well. And that'll be used as part of the study. So really our charge for this study is to help the district plan out how they could provide sewer service to all these parcels that are highlighted here on the map, theoretically assuming that everybody would want to participate. So we have 5 main tasks. The first one is to help them identify the properties that have septic systems. So that's helping out with the meetings and compiling data for them, trying to confirm who actually has the septic systems. The second task is to formulate preliminary alignments of facilities that would be needed to provide sewer service. And then the third task is to work on plan and profile sheets of the recommended facilities. And fourth is project cost estimates, and fifth is a summary report. And it's not working. Sorry. Okay, so this is the same map. Basically, the district has identified about 263 parcels they've confirmed to have septic systems, and we've identified another 402 that it seems like they have to have septic systems because there aren't any sewers nearby. So that's the difference between the red and the green. The green are suspected locations. So what we plan to do is we need to determine some preliminary alignments of how we can provide sewer service to these parcels. And so the idea would be to try to make logical groups of properties, because like Lisa said, probably homeowners are going to want to get together to share the cost of facilities. So we would try to, based on location and elevation, we would try to group properties together in a logical manner, and then try to find the most feasible way to provide service. And so some of the solutions are gravity sewers are always our first option, because that's low maintenance and longer lifespan. So that's always our first option. And of course, we're going to try to go to the nearest existing sewer that we can to connect to. But we do know that we're probably going to have to look at pump systems because of the terrain, especially in the hilly areas, Cowan Heights and Lemon Heights. And we've already seen like some of the lots, like Lisa mentioned it, they sit lower than the street does and where the sewer is. So there's just no other way except to pump up from the house to the main line. Other options for pumping could be, there's also systems out there where multiple properties pump into one common force main in the street, and then it pumps up to the local sewer system. And then it could also be building a gravity system that collects from multiple properties down to a low point, and then building a small pump station and pumping back to the main system. So our third task was to create plan and profile sheets, and this is kind of just a sample. And this will just give us, the reason for doing this is just to give us a better idea of how many manholes we need, what the length of pipe is, how deep it is. Because you could see, like in this example, sometimes, the sewer has to keep going downhill, but the terrain might go up, and so it's going to be deeper and deeper in certain areas, and so that affects the cost. And then she talked a lot about cost, but we'll be working with the district on trying to refine some of those numbers for all the different facilities we recommend, gravity and pump systems. And then this slide is just to show that there are some unique things to consider for this project, because we would try to avoid easements. So we would try to avoid recommending building sewers in easements that are like through private properties, through your backyards, because historically easements are not good for the sewer systems. Like, it's difficult to construct because you're dealing with tight spaces. You might have to remove structures and replace them. And then later, for maintenance, access is difficult. When someone has to get in there to clean it, you really don't want them in your backyard. And so we try to avoid that as much as possible, but it may be necessary sometimes. And then pump stations really are not desired. We always try to avoid that as well, but like I said, we're probably going to end up needing some of those. And then we were assuming that, and maybe some of you can correct us if we're wrong, but we were assuming that most of the time the septic tanks are in the front of your properties, because if someone comes to clean those septic tanks out, I'm imagining that they have to have access to it. And if it's in the back, it's probably very difficult. That could be on a case-by-case basis, though. And then, especially in the hilly areas, we know that construction is going to be pretty difficult. There's small roads, one car in each lane, and traffic's going to be an issue, access. So that's going to drive some of the higher construction costs as well. So those are just things that we're thinking about already and going to be considering. And then our final deliverables is really, just a summary report of what we did and the plan and profile sheets and the cost estimates. And then project schedule-wise, we're estimating that this is going to be about a 6-month process. So after this meeting, Lisa's going to provide a lot of the information from the surveys that you guys fill out, and that'll tell us like who's really interested, and that'll help us with forming the groups of properties that we look at. And I think that's it for now.
Well, I wanted to open up at this point for question and answers. I can walk by you and bring you this.
So my question is, when you say 95% participation, are you talking about 95% of the 600 properties you suspect have the septic systems?
Not necessarily. If you had a group of 10 or... Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, did 95% participation mean 95% of 600? Or is that, something else? If you had a group of 10, 15 homes or whatever, and you could get 95% of those homes that are in that benefit area, then you got a project. So. And yeah, I guess you have to hold it a little close.
If we have a sewer line in front of our house, we learned tonight that we can't finance any of the costs related to that. Is there any reason that we should be participating here with the group rather than just independently working with you guys to get that done?
Great question. I should have pointed that out. No, you can independently come in and we'll work with you one-on-one. And, oh yes, I'm sorry. If you have a sewer line in front of your home and you've got to come up with the funding on your own, is there any reason to participate with any other, this whole project? And the answer is no. That it's better for you to just come in one-on-one and we'll work with you. And to the extent where we can keep, our fee costs,
Do you guys recommend contractors and stuff like that, or?
We can't do that, but we can tell you who other people have used.
Can we do it by ourselves then?
Can you do it by yourself? Yes, you can. We've got a set of standard specifications, and this literally isn't rocket science, but we will inspect it, and it has to be built to our specifications. So if you've got experience in that, we'll work with you on doing that. Yes, ma'am.
So the people who connect themselves,
There you go.
the people who connect themselves, will they be charged taxes on their tax bill?
No, there's no tax that will be charged in any way. The dollars that I was showing you, that charge, that's actually to repay a loan that you would get to borrow the money to pay a portion of your sewer costs. So there's no tax. But the people who are going to go by themselves and they've got a sewer line in front of their home, that finance, however they come up with their $19,000, yeah, it will not be on your tax bill. It would be right out of your pocket to have to come up with that. Yes, sir.
Instead of just come into the office, what are you going to offer at the office aside from this? Should we just go find a contractor to do it, or is that something that coming in is going to do for us?
So the question was, what's the benefit of coming into the office and talking to us? We can offer you a little engineering for free, kind of, to look at your, right, to look at your situation and say, hey, you might want to look at this alignment here, and you might want to look, at the soils here, and
Is that in the full report we can have a contractor? Or?
no, it won't be. It won't be, but it'll be useful to you. I encourage you to do it. We've got a lot of experience and you want to take advantage of that, and we can give you some heads up about some things with contractors. We can't advise you, but we can give you our experience, and we've got engineering staff and operations staff that know a lot about this. Yes, sir.
Still, the main pipe belongs to you. So I would think you gotta have permission to connect, even though it might be right in front of the house.
The question is, the main pipeline belongs to us and you have to have permission to connect. Absolutely. Yeah. You cannot connect to the sewer system, and you wouldn't want to, because it would be potentially, you could get backups in your home or something like that. So you, and then yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So we had the septic tank pumped over the summer, and we've only lived in this area for a couple of years now. But the person who pumped the septic system or the tank told us that we had a lateral coming off the main, and I guess I took that to mean that there must be some sort of T that's coming off the main, but that's probably capped somewhere. Does that, first of all, does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. That was good engineering, whoever built your home. What typically happens is when they constructed the home, they thought down the road, and they either put in the lateral line for you so that if you ever did have sewer, you could connect relatively easily, or when the sewer line was being built in the street, they did what's called a Y, W-Y-E, and it's literally a connection that comes out from the sewer line, and you're stubbing out for the future lateral that will come from that house.
Okay.
So,
But something, if what he said is correct, something's there. There's either a T connection or something that goes even further.
right,
So if we were to connect, it's not like we've got to tie into the sewer line, the main in the first instance. Something's already there, it sounds like.
well, we'd have to talk more offline about exactly what that
No, I
is.
mean, I know you're not making any
Yeah.
representations. I'm just trying to get a sense of this.
Yes,
Okay.
so in your situation, obviously the cost would be less because you don't have to construct some of that system. What that is, we don't know yet.
Okay,
but-
thank you.
Yes, ma'am, you had a,
Question was, if you were to a point where you were near a line and you just had to do the lateral and you contracted it, are there permits required for that?
yes. What is not shown there is, depending on if you're in the county or in the city, they have a permitting process that you have to go through and you have to pull that permit. Those generally, I think, run in the couple $100 maximum range. Yes, sir.
Now, you would have the information as to the laterals and how far they go toward the property? Or is it normally just at the main is where the lateral is, and we have to make our own way to the lateral?
You're going to have to make your own way to the main. So the question was, do we have information about how the lateral should line up with the main and things like that? That's a detailed engineering study. That's more than what Diane and AKM Engineering are going to do. That can depend on if you've got a power line in the way, a gas line in the way, what your soils are like on your property. So that's more detailed engineering. And that's the thing I was saying, why is it worth coming into our office? Because we're going to tell you things like that. Be aware of this. Do this. You can do a lot of things yourself on your property if you know kind of what you're looking for, and help yourself on this, educate yourself. So yes, we're not going to do that detailed engineering study,
But you would have that information.
but we've got some information that we can look at your property and do and help where we can. Yes, sir. That would be really helpful. I get days when it's like crazy. So if you, on the sheet that I handed out, the very last slide has my name, Lisa Oland, and our phone number on there. And Sylvia is over there. And Sylvia is like the most important person next to Jerry Menzer in our district. So get to know Sylvia. And she'll help you out setting up that appointment. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the life expectancy was 20 years for most septics. Based upon what? The size of the reason I'm asking, we were told when we moved in that it was overbuilt, more than what we needed. And since it's just the two of us, the pumping agent who does it periodically said, we're fine for the next 20, 30 years.
And that may well be the case.
So
If they put in a
depends.
system for a family of, 6 or 8,
Right.
and you're only the two of you, absolutely, the load on that system would be much less, and it would extend out the life of your system.
Okay, well, that's what we were told from the pumping people, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Now, the other factor is just what's its general condition? Did they do a good job putting it in? Did
Yes.
they put the base in there?
I don't know, but the
Okay.
pumping people know this stuff. And
Right.
That's what they told me.
Right.
So I'm
Good.
informed by what they tell me.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Did you?
Septic tanks have to be taken out before you can hook up?
Great question. The question is, do septic tanks have to be taken out before you can hook up? No, they can stay there, but you have to open them up, pump them out one last time and put sand in them and fill them up. So that way we don't get a little baby Jessica thing happening where a kid falls in, you know, later on someday. So there is definitely a way that but you don't have to dig them out and take them out. No.
How much to pump them out?
That I put up $700 to pump it out. I don't know. Y'all may know better than I do what they charge. I'm going by. You're shaking your head. 300. Okay, so 300. There you go. Save money already. Look at there. Government. We always overestimate, right? So about $300. And then I put on the high side $1,500 to put the sand in, and it may be a lot less than that. I don't know. And it may be something you could get your teenage son, if you've got one, and you know they know how to work to do. But definitely that's an area where you can save some money.
Yeah, I had a question. About
Yes.
10 years ago, they gave us an option of tapping into the main line. I live on Hughes Street. And a bunch of people went from the main line, and I have it on my property. They went and ran a line to my property. Just wondering, do I have to still get a permit and everything for that, or still do?
The question is, he lives off of Hughes, and they ran sewer down there, and now
A bunch of people.
Did, and now there's a relatively easy
On my
connection.
property, right.
Okay, so now, if they all paid for it, and there's an agreement out there that says any future people that want to connect will allow, but you have to pay X amount of dollars, then you get their permission and then pay our fees and you can connect. But we're going to ask and we're going to look to see if there's any kind of agreement there, because we want to honor what the other people paid for and make sure that you're legally allowed to connect to their system. Because that part may be owned by them, not by us. If it's on your property, it's probably an easement that went through your property.
Oh no, I just tapped right off the main sewer line. I'm right in the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right off the sewer line on the street.
On the street?
Yeah, they went off right off the street onto
Right.
the property.
Okay. So why don't we get together and talk more about that and see what's going on? But that's the thing. We want to make sure that you have permission to hook into that.
Okay.
So, yes, ma'am.
Is there a time limit on agreements like that?
Yes. The question is, are there time limits on agreements for hooking into sewers and things? There absolutely can be. A lot of times they're 10-year type windows, and you know, if you connect within that time period, you've got to pay that.
And otherwise it's,
After that, it's a legal issue, and I don't even want to go near that. I don't want to see, because there could be longtime residents there who think that they still are due something to be reimbursed. So I don't want to say it's like no harm, no foul.